10,000 meters above the ground, the plane shakes violently. Passengers' cries for help are endless. Yet a woman remains unusually calm, holding a short dagger in her hand, revealing an eerie smile. She stands up and leaves the scene. The captain cries and begs the woman. This is 10,000 meters high. If she's killed, everyone will die. The woman smiles calmly. Your life isn't worth much. Hearing this, the captain decides to fight to death. He pulls out his gun and fires suddenly. He has a backup plan, but falls as if already defeated. The woman slightly shifts her body to dodge, avoiding the fatal blow. She launches forward to attack. The blade cuts through his body, ending his life. Flying a plane isn't that special. Others can do it too. The woman's name is Su Qingyue, a high-ranking spy from China. She's here to execute an assassination mission. She calmly controls the plane, not knowing this would change her life's trajectory. The next moment, through the plane's window, she sees a meteor streaking across the sky. The last image before her eyes is the meteor gradually approaching. After some time, Su Qingyue wakes up leisurely in a cave, looking at herself wearing ancient Chinese clothing. For the first time, she shows a surprised expression. She didn't die and appeared in an unexpected place. Could she have traveled through time? It's too incredible. Before she could think further, her spy instincts alert her to someone approaching from behind. Situation unclear, friend or foe unknown. At this moment, Su Qingyue decides to pretend to sleep. In the cave behind her, a man's figure slowly approaches. Looking at the sleeping person before him, his expression is uncertain. He extends 2 fingers to detect, sensing the woman's strong energy waves, finding it quite remarkable. But he also keenly notices that the woman's soul seems injured. The man takes out a white jade porcelain bottle and removes a blue glowing pill, slowly bringing it to the woman's lips. Unexpectedly, she bites down on it, not letting go, giving him a big fright. Su Qingyue couldn't pretend anymore. She doesn't know if this man is friend or foe, who he is, or why he's given her medicine. She lunges to grip his throat, but she hadn't expected this to be a mystical world. The man merely extends 2 fingers, and Su Qingyue feels dizzy. The surroundings begin to shake. The man's eyes glow blue, muttering incantations. A magic formation seems to form. Su Qingyue falls backward, hitting her head on a rock. Spitting blood, she thinks such powerful force. This cultivation world isn't to be trifled with. Meanwhile, the man realizes that although she has strong energy, she knows no spells. Having no real power yet daring to attack, she's truly audacious. However, he isn't a petty person. Su Qingyue's action was self-defense. The man reaches to tear her clothes, startling Su Qingyue. She wonders if he's taking advantage of her, but he's actually treating her wounds. Their palms meet, spiritual power flowing. Su Qingyue feels a warm current enter her body, improving her condition. She isn't ungrateful and doesn't like owing favors. She asks directly what she needs to do in return. The man bites his fingertip, saying that's simple. Before Su Qingyue can react, the blood from his fingertip is already marked on her forehead. The man chants, forming a master-servant contract. After a flash of light, the blood mark is absorbed. Su Qingyue doesn't yet understand what happened. This contract binds their lives together, and she cannot disobey his orders. He wants her as his servant. Su Qingyue opens her mouth, still shocked. But she doesn't want to break the contract since she's in unfamiliar territory, and this man seems influential. Better to find a patron first before making plans. So despite her displeasure, she endured it. As she turned away, the man revealed a triumphant smile. But these matters could wait until they got out alive. The man led Su Qingyue towards the cave exit. Along the way, he wondered curiously, how did a woman with no magical abilities end up in such a dangerous place? Su Qingyue had no idea herself. She had just opened her eyes to find herself here. Looking carefully, she saw a giant beast opening its bloody maw before them. The gust of air rushed straight at her. The man quickly pulled Su Qingyue aside, protecting her. His hands formed seals, releasing sharp rays of light. Clearly not an ordinary person. As the formation's light grew clearer, the monster was enveloped in light. This was the legendary ancient divine beast Xiongqi. Clearly not easy to deal with. She wondered if she would lose her life right after transmigrating. Now she could only place her hopes in this man. They had formed a life and death contract. Now they were in this together. The man struggled to maintain the formation, the situation looking grim. Cheonchi continued its mental assault, urging them to give up. It would soon break through the formation, and then they couldn't escape its claws. Cheonchi was an ancient divine beast. If they couldn't defeat it in one strike, the consequences would be endless. The man frowned deeply. He channeled all his 7th rank power, forcing out an 8th rank formation. Though he was already considered exceptional, it wasn't enough against Cheonchi. It extended its demonic claws, stirring up a fierce wind. Like blades, it cut through the man's skin, shredding his clothes piece by piece. In this situation, Su Qingyue still had the presence of mind to admire that his physique was better than any male agent she'd worked with, showing an appreciative look. Truly strong-hearted. The man worried for Su Qingyue's safety, telling her to hide behind him. Su Qingyue moved without hesitation. She sensibly moved closer, but was still quite unhappy about having to rely on a man for protection. As the dragon claws were about to reach them, Cheonchi was already celebrating internally. A contract-stage cultivator would become its nourishment. The thought excited it greatly. At this critical moment, the man flashed forward, taking the fatal blow for Su Qingyue. Her head hit his firm chest. The man coughed up blood. His black hair instantly turned white. Feeling the man's heartbeat, Su Qingyue's cheeks reddened. Such a warm body. Her own heartbeat quickened. The man straightened up, and Su Qingyue almost fell, caught off guard. Looking up at his handsome face, his white hair added a certain charm. "Why are you still clinging to me?" Hearing his words, Su Qingyue's face burned like fire. How embarrassing. It wasn't intentional. This was a stain on her professional career. The man had no time to think more. Cheonchi wasn't defeated yet. His hands formed seals again, emitting red light that inspired fear. Even Su Qingyue, who knew no magic, could feel the power of this attack. Red formation wings took shape. Cheonchi was shocked. How could a 7th rank cultivator form a 9th rank seal? Unless his identity, Cheonchi sensed danger. Even without cultivation, Su Qingyue could feel the extraordinary power emanating from the man. What was he trying to do? Was he attempting to seal Cheonchi by himself? Now Cheonchi was fighting like a cornered beast. Facing such a powerful 9th rank formation, Cheonchi decided to fight to the death. If it couldn't devour him, it wouldn't be sealed. It had to drag them both down. A powerful energy burst erupted from Cheonchi's mouth. The energy wave exploded like a bomb. Both lost consciousness. When they regained awareness, Su Qingyue felt a naked man lying on top of her. She quickly pushed him away. It was the man from before, his body weak, hair completely white. Anyone could see he was severely injured. Thinking that he was injured because of her, Su Qingyue felt apologetic. It wasn't intentional. What could she do for him now? The man's weak voice sounded in her ear. He had a bottle of spirit-gathering powder at his waist. "Help him get it out." Su Qingyue looked down. Surely the powder wasn't in that position? This wasn't appropriate. But hearing the man's weak cough, Su Qingyue's heart softened. "I'll help you get it. Just don't die." She closed her eyes tightly, reaching down to search, but couldn't find the medicine bottle anywhere. She had to pat the man up and down, seemingly touching somewhere inappropriate. The man let out a muffled groan. "No way." Su Qingyue was shocked. She wasn't a pervert. She withdrew her hand, but the man stopped her. "Not there yet." What did he mean by not there? How could he say this? The man guided her hand lower. "Not yet. You touched the wrong spot earlier." The atmosphere was getting strange. Su Qingyue coughed twice to ease the awkwardness. But suddenly she realized something. He could move by himself. So why did he need her help getting the medicine? The man's face turned red. When Su Qingyue touched the wrong spot earlier, she accidentally stimulated his acupoint, temporarily releasing his energy. But now his body suddenly convulsed, showing signs of pain. The wounds on his body all erupted. "What's wrong?" Su Qingyue panicked. The man slowly explained that unless for treatment, those acupoints shouldn't be touched carelessly. Though it activated his spiritual energy, it damaged his foundation. This was a sign of backlash. "Quick, help him take the antidote." The pain on his face grew more intense. Su Qingyue didn't dare delay. She put a golden pill in his mouth. The man frowned deeply. As if falling into endless hell, he cried out in agony. The blood marks on his body grew worse. What was happening? Su Qingyue panicked. What else had happened? Could he survive? If the man died, what about their contract? Wouldn't she die with him? Seeing his head drooping, Su Qingyue had an idea. Maybe there was still a way to save him. The man was confused. He couldn't even use magic. How could he treat injuries? Little did he know that Su Qingyue, as a 21st century female agent, had her own methods of self-preservation. Her blood had healing properties that could turn danger into safety. As long as it wasn't a fatal wound, Su Qingyue wouldn't die. At this moment, she didn't think much. She cut her finger and fed her blood to the man's lips. Sensing the sweet bloody scent, the man closed his eyes slightly and sucked the blood from her fingertip. But something felt wrong. It didn't seem like the kindergarten bus. I wanted to get off. Two groups of soldiers met. They gripped sharp swords tightly. With a crisp swooshing sound, the blades reflected dazzling light. The air was filled with tension and the spirit of dueling. At this time, one of the men in black broke the tense atmosphere. He pulled out a red headband from somewhere and tied it around his forehead. Ruan Lianrong watched from the side, eating melon seeds. So many red headbands. Where did these men in black come from? After tying the headbands, don't mind these details, as long as we can tell friend from foe. The next second, the black-clad men with red headbands began fighting those without. Blades clashed, making sharp metallic sounds. The scene became chaotic. During the melee, some people's red headbands were torn off. Now everyone was even more confused about who was friend or foe, randomly punching and kicking. Seeing this rather absurd scene, the old jailer quietly pulled away the melon-eating Ruan Lianrong. Seventh Princess, you must leave quickly. His Highness said he would send people to rescue you, but neither of these groups seems very reliable. The old jailer escorted Ruan Lianrong outside the prison. The sky was already dark, with only a few red lanterns illuminating a few inches ahead. The old jailer gave Ruan Lianrong a letter and a cloth package. Seventh Princess, this is His Highness's personal letter and some travel money. He says after you leave, find General Ning, flee far away together, and never return. Thinking about how she had just pushed Ruan Rougeau into the wall, making him unconscious, yet he was still so kind to her now. Ruan Lianrong covered her face and wept, feeling a hint of guilt in her heart. However, amidst this sorrowful atmosphere, she suddenly detected an unusual presence. It was an indescribable tension and unease. As if something ominous was about to happen, she instinctively turned around, her eyes filled with fear of the unknown. What she saw on the wall made her tremble involuntarily. There were clusters of gleaming arrowheads, shining like stars in the dark night. Their sharp tips pointed directly at her, each flash seeming to pierce her soul. With a soft swoosh, the arrows cut through the air, shooting accurately in her direction. Ruan Lianrong's face changed drastically, fear surging like a tide within her. She felt as if she was standing in the eye of a storm, surrounded by overwhelming danger and endless despair. At this moment, the system's red warning light suddenly lit up. Along with the bright warning light came a piercing sound. System alert! System alert! Host countdown approaching 0. Ruan Lianrong immediately deflated. The successive unexpected events had almost made her lose the determination and courage she had when first arriving in this world. Help! This world is too difficult. Hearing Ruan Lianrong's dejected words, the system snapped its fingers. Help request received. As a mysterious aura spread through the air, several strange cards suddenly appeared before Ruan Lianrong. They seemed to be summoned from nothingness. Each card landed precisely in front of her. The cards weren't connected to each other at all, as if some force was guiding them. Just as she felt confused, a deep and serious voice came from the void. It asked if she was willing to embark on an adventure involving choices of fate. Though the three cards looked very similar in style, each depicted different images. One card showed a balance scale. Another card was composed of a sword and bow. The last card's pattern was surprisingly a bull's head. Looking at the three cards before her, Ruan Lianrong stopped crying, but hadn't fully processed the situation. She slowly extended her finger and touched the card with the balance scale. Following her choice, all three cards flipped over. The card she chose read continue 1 second. The other two read author dies once and author survives. Seeing the text on the other cards, Ruan Lianrong felt emotional. The chosen card quickly took effect. In that fleeting moment, just as the arrow was about to pierce Ruan Lianrong's chest, the arrowhead seemed to be gently held by a mysterious hand, stopping abruptly in midair. Creating a brief pause, Ruan Lianrong was stunned by this sudden change, but she didn't lose her composure. She quickly reacted, protecting her head with both hands and instinctively leaning to one side, avoiding the fatal strike. Then came a piercing whistle as the arrow brushed past Ruan Lianrong, its sharp sound tearing through her clothes, leaving a visible wound. Though injured, Ruan Lianrong felt relieved, believing she had successfully avoided the crisis. The arrow firmly embedded itself in the ground with a dull thud. thud. The arrow's fletching trembled slightly in the breeze, showing the archer's immense strength. At this moment, Ruan Lianrong felt her heartbeat hadn't fully calmed, silently weeping and sighing. The system calmly explained the origin of the cards. 3 VIP users simultaneously activated their skills, triggering the system's fate choice. The system adjusted its glasses. You're quite lucky. Choosing C, Ruan Lianrong wept, blood trickling from her mouth in pain. Truly, my dear reader, the system closed its book. But this arrow was poisoned. Ruan Lianrong peacefully wept, then fell backward before finishing her sentence. In her mind, she wondered if she was going to die again. In her semi-conscious state, Ruan Lianrong seemed to see a man in blue clothes, holding a folding fan, laughing softly. You can't die so simply. After an unknown period of unconsciousness, Ruan Lianrong seemed to hear voices talking nearby. That voice. Ruan Lianrong gently opened her eyes. Her pupils gradually adjusted to the dim light, slowly expanding. The first thing she saw was the exquisite bedding. On the low table by the bed sat a small incense burner. The burning incense continuously released wisps of smoke, which curled up like living things, slowly rising and filling the entire room. Just then, she was surprised to discover someone standing in front of her. He stood straight as a pine, wearing a white robe. His eyes were deep and steady, seeming to carry an indescribable aura. Ruan Lianrong gently stretched her body and slowly sat up in bed. Her gaze fell upon the man before her. She saw him standing with one hand on his hip, the other elegantly waving a delicate folding fan. The fan swayed gently with his movements, adding a touch of refinement. The man's eyes carried a gentle smile, as if he could see through everything, like a wise man keeping his depths hidden. Princess, Wen Zhuang has some medical knowledge. After saying this, Wen Zhuang closed his folding fan. Ruan Lianrong was captivated by a series of movements, momentarily lost in thought. When she clearly saw the person before her, she couldn't help but blush, feeling an inexplicable shyness. This person's smile is so beautiful, she thought. After a moment, she realized something was wrong. Wait, wasn't I in the imperial prison? Ruan Lianrong immediately became wary of the man who called himself Wen Zhuang. Who are you? Wen Zhuang smiled slightly. He seemed unsurprised by Ruan Lianrong's reaction. Quick reactions indeed. Wen Zhuang calmly explained to her, "Don't be afraid, princess. I mean no harm. I was the one who treated the poison in your body." Just as Ruan Lianrong was about to say something, urgent and loud knocking suddenly came from the door. There was no response from outside, but the knocking didn't cease. Instead, it grew louder, echoing through the empty room. The group knocking at the door wore formal attire and carried sharp weapons, clearly not ordinary people. Seeing no response, the leader shouted, "Crown Prince's orders. The princess is missing. Search everywhere." Hearing this, Ruan Lianrong felt relieved. She broke into a hopeful smile. "My brother has come for me. That's wonderful." As her words and clear voice still echoed in the air, in that instant, a sharp sword appeared like a ghost. Ruan Lianrong's eyes widened in surprise, her movements frozen for a moment. The sword had silently come to rest against her neck. The cold blade made her involuntarily lift her head. It was a guard in black uniform who had silently appeared beside Ruan Lianrong's bed. Each step was steady and powerful. His eyes were cold and merciless, as if they could pierce into the depths of one's soul. His voice was equally chilling, like it came from beneath a frozen lake. "Stay quiet if you want to live." His tone conveyed an unquestionable command and threat. Ruan Lianrong knew she was in danger, but she also understood the importance of staying silent at this moment. Despite feeling an urge to resist, she suppressed it forcefully. After taking a deep breath, she chose to comply and made no further sound. Wen Zhuang remained silent. Ruan Lianrong wisely kept quiet as well. The air in the room was filled with a subtle and tense atmosphere. As time passed, silence gradually spread, like the last warmth of winter being silently taken away. However, in this quiet moment, the knocking outside suddenly became more urgent, accompanied by loud banging sounds, like a silent declaration of war. "Open the door! Open the door! If you don't open it, we'll break it down." The sound grew louder and louder, each knock more urgent than the last, as if urging those inside to respond. Ruan Lianrong felt this sudden pressure. Her hands unconsciously gripped the blanket, palms sweating. She felt an inexplicable tension rising in her heart. What should I do? When Zhuang suddenly opened the door, holding a golden waist token inscribed with the character Wind, he showed the token to everyone. Officers, this is the Wind and Rain House's territory. We haven't seen the princess. Please show us some consideration. Ruan Lianrong, still controlled by the sword, looked desperate. Why don't you come in and search? When Zhuang returned inside, closed the door, and looked at Ruan Lianrong with pressed lips. Ruan Lianrong bit her lip in defiance. Liar! When Zhuang grabbed the black-clothed guard's clothes and pulled her away from Ruan Lianrong. She forced me to do this. When Zhuang pulled the guard away, the sword now at her throat. I am but a doctor, forced by this person to come here and treat the princess. The black-clothed guard looked reluctant. Ruan Lianrong sat alone, feeling the situation was utterly absurd. What on earth is going on? Shortly after, when Zhuang and the black-clothed guard left the room. In the corridor, the guard spoke. Your Highness, the city guards are searching everywhere. We can't hide her much longer. He made a throat-cutting gesture. Should we just? When Zhuang hit him on the head with his folding fan in disgust, the guard pitifully covered his reddened forehead. This person could kill for just a sword master. It shows resurrection, defying heaven's will, the guard joked. Not worth your Highness's concern. When Zhuang struck the guard again heavily with his fan. I worked so hard to save her, and you want to kill her? The guard cried out in pain. If we don't do it, the crown prince's wife will. Hearing this, when Zhuang's gaze lingered on him for just a moment before turning away, he remained silent, simply turning around. When Zhuang slowly walked to stand behind the railing, where he could view the entire Shangji nation, Ruan Ruzhou wasn't foolish. He knew clearly that Ning Wugui needed to be found. This wasn't just about the mission itself, but an important action concerning the bigger picture. Go find Ning Wugui. Tell him the Wind and Rain House has found the princess, and His Highness wants to make a deal. The black-clothed guard quickly left after receiving the order, leaving Wen Zhuang standing alone. He muttered, "You can't die just like this." Meanwhile, in the Shangji Palace, Ruan Lianrong's disappearance exploded like a time bomb in Ruan Ruzhou's heart. He angrily smashed his teacup on the ground, shattering it into several pieces. Tea splashed everywhere, creating a spray of water. The guards knelt trembling on the ground, not daring to raise their heads, fearing greater anger and punishment. Still no news of a wrong? They had never seen such a cold monarch. His usually gentle face now appeared exceptionally gloomy and stern. His gaze was sharp as a hawk's, his questioning voice carrying undeniable authority. What about the prison? A guard respectfully replied about the prison head. Yesterday, 2 groups came to take the princess away. They fought until General Ning arrived, but by then the princess was already gone. Ruan Ruzhou's anger churned in his chest. His clenched fist cracked audibly, every movement showing extreme force. Useless in success, abundant in failure. The guard panicked at this sight. His knees seemed to be struck by some invisible force, making a crisp sound as he finally knelt down. Like everyone else around, they lowered their heads, bodies trembling, eyes showing fear and unease. Your servant found that one group of prison raiders seemed to be the Crown Prince's wife's doing. Just then, someone came to announce that the Crown Prince's wife requested an audience. Ruan Ruzhou, feeling quite irritated, refused her request. Where is Ning Wugui now? The attendant answered, General Ning is searching everywhere. There's still no news of Princess. Ruan Ruzhou's expression worsened. If he can't find her wrong, let him go accompany her in death. No need to see me. Ruan Ruzhou turned and strode away from the palace. Upon seeing the Crown Prince's wife, Ruan Ruzhou's face immediately changed. His previously solemn expression suddenly became extraordinarily animated. That expression was like flowers blooming in spring, both bright and full of life. He slightly raised the corners of his mouth, his voice carrying joy and affection. My beloved has come. At night, with the moon high in the sky, Ruan Lianrong sat dejectedly in the corner, supporting her forehead. The system carefully wrote down the words dejected nearby. Suddenly, someone knocked gently on the door. Princess, General Ning has arrived. Ruan Lianrong looked at the package and envelope on the table. Ning Wugui is right. It's a letter from Brother Crown Prince. She remembered the things the old jailer gave her when taking her out of prison. This is His Highness's personal letter and some travel money. Ruan Lianrong immediately perked up. He still has money and keeps his word. Ruan Lianrong sat at the table, opened the envelope, and read its contents carefully. Dearest Arong, trust in me. General Ning is heaven sent. Wasn't your escape from the siege impressive? Actually, this was all arranged by Brother Wei. Go with him. Don't worry about the rest. Brother Wei has arranged everything. After reading the letter, Ruan Lianrong couldn't help but cry. Tears of relief flowed from her eyes. General Ning Wugui, isn't he my male protagonist? An upright gentleman, unbending and just. And he's the most handsome man in Shangji. He definitely won't harm me. At that moment, the door suddenly opened, and 3 people entered the room. Besides the black-clothed guard and Wen Zhuang, standing in the middle was Ning Wugui, whom Juan Rougeau had just mentioned in his letter. General Ning, Princess. General Ning has arrived, the black-clothed guard said solemnly. Then he turned to Ning Wugui. I hope the general keeps his word. Ning Wugui bowed to him. Ning Wugui always keeps his promises. Listening to their conversation, Ruan Lianrong was completely confused. What was going on now? Ning Wugui knelt before Ruan Lianrong. Your servant was late in coming to rescue. Please forgive me, Princess. Ruan Lianrong, with question marks all over her head, said, It's good that you're here, it's good. Ning Wugui bowed lower to the ground. I failed in leading the troops, losing to Princess Muse Leiji. I deserve death. Ruan Lianrong found this even stranger. No, I actually deserve some credit too. Ning Wugui continued. A carriage is ready outside the city. Please bear with the inconvenience for a few days, Princess. Once we reach our destination, I shall immediately marry you, Princess. Ruan Lianrong's smile froze on her face. Why? Thinking about the kingdom's countdown timer that was constantly decreasing, Ruan Lianrong quickly waved her hands. General, calm down. What about Lu Feifei if you marry me? Ruan Lianrong wailed internally. Shangji's General Ning Wugui and Minister Lu's daughter Lu Feifei are a perfect match. They're the main couple chosen by the author. Ruan Lianrong's face darkened, troubled by Ning Wugui's words. What kind of strange move is this, marrying me? Ning Wugui closed his eyes, his voice full of guilt. I am a defeated general. How could I have the face to ask for Miss Lu's hand? Hearing this, Ruan Lianrong's mouth twitched. Brother, something seems wrong here. Under the moonlight, a servant led the young master of the Blue Gauze Gang to the small house where Ruan Lianrong and the others were held. Young master, I can find the 3 of them here. The servant bowed respectfully. The young master of the Blue Gauze Gang picked his ear casually. While responding half-heartedly, he then stopped his action. His face showed a somewhat sleazy smile. By the way, how does that fake imperial princess look? Is she pretty? The servant repeatedly answered, Yes, she's quite pretty. The young master of the Blue Gauze Gang turned around, looking at the person behind him with displeasure. If she's pretty, why did you come along? He stepped forward and pushed open the door. Remember, no matter what sounds you hear from inside, don't come in. The servant had to accept the order and withdraw. The young master entered, putting on a serious expression. He sternly questioned those confined in the room. You're the ones who impersonated the Shangji marriage convoy, right? The 3 people in the room were tied to a thick wooden post, their hands bound with thin rope. Ning Wugui glared at him fiercely. Wen Zhuang showed little reaction. The young master continued. Now that you've entered my Blue Gauze Gang's territory, not only must you hand over all your gold and jewels, but no one's getting away. He stepped forward and grabbed Ruan Lianrong's chin, grinning. Especially you, pretty one. You could be my 38th concubine. Ruan Lianrong put on a pitiful, wronged expression that was even more heart-wrenching. Can I only be the 38th concubine? Wen Zhuang secretly held back his laughter. Ruan Lianrong continued. If I tell you the true whereabouts of the Shangji princess, how will young master reward me? The Blue Gauze Gang young master beamed with joy. He said smugly, Really? If you tell me the princess's whereabouts, I'll marry you immediately as my primary wife. Seeing the fish take the bait, Ruan Lianrong smiled lightly. Very well. Young master, please come closer. Ning Wugui had already raised the burlap sack, quietly waiting on the side. When the Blue Gauze Gang young master leaned down, the next second the sack was over his head. Ning Wugui immediately tied the opening tightly with rope. The young master struggled but could only make muffled, woo-woo sounds. The ropes binding the 3 were already untied. Ning Wugui and Wen Zhuang began punching and kicking the hooded young master. Ouch, it hurts! The Blue Gauze Gang young master curled up on the ground, holding his head. Ruan Lianrong watched from the side, adding fuel to the fire. "Young master, didn't you want me to be rougher?" The frightened servants at the door could only hear Ruan Lianrong's voice and the young master's screams. "Young master, scream a little louder." One servant could barely stand to listen anymore. He couldn't help saying, "The young master's screams sound terrible. Are you sure we shouldn't go in?" The other servant was already used to it. "You don't know. Our young master and his dozens of concubines always play like this. It's definitely fine." Little did they know that after Ning Wugui and when Zhuang finished teaching him a lesson, the Blue Gauze Gang's young master was quietly hiding behind the door, ready to deal with the two people standing guard. When Zhuang pushed the door open slightly, "I'll take the east side." Ning Wugui nodded. "Then I'll go west. We'll meet up later." The two who were just chatting had their pressure point struck and were kicked away. Soon, all the servants in the Blue Gauze Gang were bound and kneeling before the three of them. Their young master was kneeling in the middle with his head covered, all of them grimacing in pain. Ruan Lianrong held a tree branch from somewhere, tapping it slowly against her palm. "Is everyone here?" When Zhuang said, "General Ning is quite capable. He even caught the kitchen chef who was trying to escape. The entire Blue Gauze Gang has been defeated." Ning Wugui stood behind, hand on his hip. "You're too kind." Ruan Lianrong stopped tapping her palm. "In that case, I'll begin the interrogation." She pointed the branch at the Blue Gauze Gang's young master. "Who are you? Speak up quickly." The young master just kept crying, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Ruan Lianrong removed the burlap sack from his head. The Blue Gauze Gang's young master's face was already bruised and swollen. He said defiantly, "My father is the leader of the Blue Gauze Gang. He's very rich. He'll ransom me back." Hearing this, Ruan Lianrong wasn't intimidated. Instead, her smile became more menacing. "Though the Blue Gauze Gang has been evil in recent years, they only seek money. You came straight for killing me. Tell me who sent you." The Blue Gauze Gang young master's eyes darted around, seemingly trying to avoid the question. But this only proved he had something to hide, and that there was definitely someone behind this. While he was still hesitating, a sword was placed against his neck. Ning Wugui said harshly, "I don't want to hear nonsense." The Blue Gauze Gang young master trembled and pulled out a paper from his pocket. It was a mysterious man. "He gave me a prescription." His hand shaking, he presented the paper. "He told me to kill the Shangji princess." Ruan Lianrong took the prescription. The Blue Gauze Gang young master cried heavily. He said he could help the Blue Gauze Gang conquer Shangji. It was all his doing, not me. Ruan Lianrong looked at the prescription thoughtfully. No wonder Ning Wugui, being so capable, couldn't defeat those bandits earlier. It was because of this powder. Ruan Lianrong didn't waste words. She grabbed the Blue Gauze Gang young master's collar. What other clues are there about this mysterious person? The Blue Gauze Gang young master was sweating profusely. Large tears rolled down his face. "I don't know anything else," but he said his name was Luan Yu. Hearing that name, both Wen Zhuang and Ruan Lianrong's expressions changed. "What?" Ruan Lianrong raised her hand to strike. "Empty words. Do you have proof?" The Blue Gauze Gang young master quickly said, "In my clothes, there's a letter he sent. You can see for yourself." Ning Wugui crouched down and found the letter from Luan Yu in his clothes, then handed it to Ruan Lianrong. "Princess, look." Ruan Lianrong looked at the letter with furrowed brows. The signature was indeed Luan Yu's. She clutched the letter tightly. "But in my settings, King Luan Yu of Linen isn't the type to conspire with villains." She stared at the letter, lost in thought. Could it be another butterfly effect? Seeing Ruan Lianrong's prolonged silence, Ning Wugui became worried. He spoke. "If the letter is genuine, princess, will you still go to Linen?" When Zhuang lowered his eyes beside them, his expression wasn't pleasant either. "Who could it be?" Ruan Lianrong shook her head. "Even so, I must still go to Linen." She kicked the still kneeling Blue Gauze Gang young master. "Where did you take our belongings?" The Blue Gauze Gang young master quickly pointed to a nearby room. "In the West Wing. Don't worry, nothing has been touched." Ruan Lianrong discussed with the two. "Let's settle here for tonight and continue tomorrow." Ning Wugui accepted the command. The Blue Gauze Gang's location was remote, but the natural environment was quite nice. Nestled between mountains and waters, it was very peaceful. A white dove cooed as it landed on Wen Zhuang's fingertip. Wen Zhuang caught the white dove and tucked a small note into its claw before releasing it back into the air. Wen Zhuang watched the dove's silhouette fade into the distance, appearing particularly lonely and desolate. The next moment, there was a strange noise from the nearby bushes. "Come here," followed by clucking sounds of attack. Behind the bushes, Ruan Lianrong let out an ouch. Crouching, and doing something mysterious. When Zhuang looked helpless as he saw Ruan Lianrong crawling on the ground, staring at two proud roosters in front of her, she gritted her teeth and muttered, "I don't believe it. I'll get you today." When Zhuang walked over to the crawling Ruan Lianrong, "Princess, it's getting dark. We're leaving early tomorrow morning. Why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here catching chickens?" Ruan Lianrong was exasperated. She stood up with her hands on her hips. "It's because they're making too much noise for me to sleep. I want to turn them into finger-licking chicken. Let's see if they dare to be so arrogant then." When Zhuang stood beside Ruan Lianrong, silently closing his mouth, Ruan Lianrong's initially high spirits suddenly deflated. "Though I don't know how to make it, and I don't know how to catch them either." Hearing this, when Zhuang smiled, his expression showing both indulgence and helplessness, he rolled up his sleeves and walked in front of Ruan Lianrong. "Let me handle it. Although I don't know your finger-licking chicken recipe, but I do know how to make beggar's chicken." Feathers flew everywhere as the roosters clucked and fluttered about. Soon, the mud-wrapped beggar's chicken was placed on an iron rack, sizzling as it roasted. Rich aromas wafted through the air. When Zhuang rolled up his sleeves and fanned the fire with a fan, trying to make it stronger, Ruan Lianrong sat beside him, looking admiringly. "When Zhuang, you're amazing." When Zhuang smiled and said, "It's nothing. Living outdoors, I've picked up these skills." The outer clay shell was cracked open, and the cooked beggar's chicken steamed hot. Ruan Lianrong tore off a chicken leg. "Then I won't be polite." Suddenly, when Zhuang reached out his hand, "There's something on your nose. Let me help you." His hand brushed Ruan Lianrong's cheek, making her blush immediately. Fortunately, she quickly resumed her normal expression. "Such a beautiful night and delicious food. How can we not have wine?" She produced a jar of wine from somewhere. "Luckily, I secretly kept this bandit wine. Have a drink with me, brother." After drinking who knows how much, Ruan Lianrong's eyes became somewhat unfocused. Her cheeks were flushed, clearly showing the effects of the wine. She hiccuped. Beside her were countless empty wine jars. When Zhuang was still roasting chicken, while Ruan Lianrong hugged a wine jar. When Zhuang, "How can you be such a good cook as a doctor, and hold your liquor so well?" Ruan Lianrong paused, then continued with a lovesick expression that looked somewhat comical. "And be so handsome too." Hearing these words, when Zhuang's hand paused while roasting, he looked up with a smile at the now drunk and dazed Ruan Lianrong. "Princess, you're drunk." Ruan Lianrong threw down the wine jar and moved closer to Wen Zhuang. Imitating a playboy, she grabbed Wen Zhuang's chin with one hand, while giggling foolishly, trying to flirt with Wen Zhuang. "Smile for me, pretty one." When Zhuang froze, his face darkening, he caught Ruan Lianrong's hand that was touching his face and tried to move the wine jar away from her. "Princess, you can't drink anymore." Ruan Lianrong grabbed the wine jar back. With a red face, she protested, "I'm not drunk," though this statement had no credibility. Then she put down the wine jar and lunged at Wen Zhuang, still speaking flirtatiously. "Handsome boy, why don't you just be mine?" She stroked Wen Zhuang's long hair, mumbling, "I'll write books to make money, and you just stay pretty." Wen Zhuang's face suddenly reddened. Ruan Lianrong fell back against his chest, still fantasizing about their beautiful future together. "We can buy a big 3-bedroom apartment." Before she could finish her sentence, Ruan Lianrong passed out in Wen Zhuang's arms, overcome by the wine. Wen Zhuang was stunned. Never before had a woman fallen asleep drunk in his arms. This sudden situation left him at a loss for what to do. His hand hung in midair, unsure where to place it. The servant appeared behind him, seemingly out of nowhere. "Master, I'll bring paper." The princess should return to her room. When Zhuang refused, lifting Ruan Lianrong by her knees and carrying her completely. When Zhuang's cheeks were flushed, looking at Ruan Lianrong sleeping in his arms, he thought she was truly a nonsensical little liar. The next day, the group, along with the vehicles, horses, and manpower seized from the bandit leader, arrived at the border gates of Linen Country. The guard soldiers stopped them. "Halt! Who goes there?" Ning Wugui, riding at the front, took out the passage documents. "We are envoys from Shangji Country. Here are our papers." The guard took the documents and went to fetch the commanding officer. The officer received and examined the papers. After carefully reading them, he said, "So you're envoys from Shangji. What a shame." Wugui frowned. "What do you mean?" The officer closed the documents and smiled apologetically. According to linen law, once the border gates are closed, even the ruler cannot enter or exit freely. I'm afraid you cannot enter the city today. However, there's an inn outside the city. As envoys who've come from afar, You can rest there for 2 days. Hearing the commotion outside, Ruan Lianrong lifted the carriage curtain. What's happening? Ning Wugui turned to explain. The city lord of Yongding, Linen's border city, claims the gates are closed and cannot receive us. He suggests we rest at an inn outside the city. Hearing this, when Zhuang, riding nearby, raised an eyebrow. Ruan Lianrong yawned, having not slept well due to last night's events, now feeling extremely tired. Hearing Ning Wugui's words, she didn't think much about it and simply agreed. That's fine, let's find a place to make do for now. Ning Wugui pulled the reins, turning around, and instructed the servants from Qingsha Gang. Escort the princess and find an inn to stay. The group changed direction towards the inn. A guard soldier whispered in the commanding officer's ear. Sir, arrangements at the inn have been made. The officer's previously honest and simple smile instantly vanished, replaced by a sinister and terrifying expression. Remember to keep it clean. Don't let their blood stain the soil of our Yongding city. The carriage traveled further and further. The three were unaware of what awaited them. After traveling several miles, they finally arrived at the nearest inn, called the Silver Right Inn, a 2-story building with decent decorations. Ruan Lianrong stretched as she entered, commenting that she must take a bath tonight. Wugui gave the innkeeper a gold ingot to rent the entire inn, requesting peace and quiet. The innkeeper held his abacus in one hand and the gold ingot in the other, his eyes lighting up with joy. He had never seen such wealth before. After accepting the gold, he repeatedly agreed, understood. Ning Wugui told Ruan Lianrong, Princess, I'll check on the horses first. You and Mr. Wen can go upstairs to rest. Ruan Lianrong nodded in agreement. After Ning Wugui left, the innkeeper didn't keep them waiting. He quickly brought a tray with room tokens. The Heaven Suite is ready for you. Please go upstairs, honored guests, and let us know if you need anything. After the long journey, Ruan Lianrong was starving. Very well, first arrange a table of good wine and food. This princess will reward you generously before leaving. After all, Ning Wugui is paying. Ruan Lianrong took a room token from the tray. After choosing her room, she followed Wen Zhuang upstairs. What a coincidence, Wen Zhuang. She smiled at Wen Zhuang walking in front of her. We're staying next door to each other. Wen Zhuang nodded. The accountant nearby glanced at them. Ruan Lianrong paused on the stairs. She felt like someone was watching her. That cold sensation coming from all directions made Ruan Lianrong shiver. It felt like multiple gazes were tightly wrapped around her, making it hard to breathe. After experiencing a series of accidents, Ruan Lianrong had become very vigilant. She could quickly detect unusual atmospheres around her. She instinctively turned her head to look at the people in the first-floor hall, but they were all looking down. The waiters were diligently wiping tables. Customers were lowering their heads, drinking tea, and dining. Everyone was busy with their own affairs. It seemed that Ruan Lianrong's momentary hesitation was just an illusion. Perhaps she was being overly cautious, seeing enemies everywhere. Even Ruan Lianrong herself was puzzled, wondering if she had made a mistake. For safety's sake, Ruan Lianrong decided not to dismiss this as mere imagination. She quickly walked behind Wen Zhuang and tugged at his sleeve. When Zhuang turned around and Ruan Lianrong continued in a low voice, something feels off here. It feels like someone's watching us. Does Linen Country also have those infamous human meat bun shops? When Zhuang held Ruan Lianrong's hand reassuringly. Princess, don't worry. Linen has simple customs. There won't be any human meat bun shops. If anything happens, General Ning and I are right next door. Just call us anytime. Hearing this, Ruan Lianrong finally relaxed. She quickly nodded. All right. Ruan Lianrong's gaze softened. She gently lifted little Fuzi from the ground, her movements gentle and natural. That initial air of authority she had shown seemed to quietly recede at this moment, replaced by a kind and warm atmosphere. Her face bore a smile, no longer the previous cold expression, but rather a more approachable and friendly demeanor. Well then, someone needs to take care of things here. You can stay for now. Little Fuzi looked straight at Ruan Lianrong. She continued, but your name, we need to change it. While thinking about how to rename Little Fuzi, Ruan Lianrong happened to notice the milk tea cup beside her. The cup had 4 characters, boba milk tea. Ruan Lianrong had a sudden inspiration. She raised the milk tea cup and said to Little Fuzi, from now on, you'll be called Milk Tea. The system secretly complained, still wanting to drink their blood. Just then, a man and a woman suddenly burst into Guanju Palace. The woman had a rough voice, bursting in while calling out loudly, Rong Rong, Rong Rong. The woman was considerably taller than average. Upon seeing Ruan Lianrong, she walked straight over, her eyes full of recognition. Little Fuzi stepped forward to block the strange woman, but, due to the height difference, was directly covered in the face by one hand. Little Fuzi felt helpless and frustrated. He tried with his actions to stop this mysterious woman, yet appeared so small before her. She stood tall like a giant, while little Fuzi was just an ordinary person. The height difference meant he didn't even have a chance to touch her. Ruan Lianrong, watching the robust woman approach, stepped back several times in fear, her face showing rejection. "Wait, big sister, who are you?" Hearing this, the woman's face showed both anger and embarrassment. Little Fuzi, held back by Ruan Lianrong's hand on his shoulder, was stuck between them, unable to move anywhere. Caught in this awkward atmosphere, he was at a loss. The woman clenched her fists secretly. "I'm your brother." Ruan Lianrong was shocked. She stared at the woman in palace-made clothes and stammered, "Brother?" Someone nearby burst into laughter, like history repeating itself, as if a similar situation had occurred not long ago. In this awkward moment, someone tactlessly laughed out loud. Ruan Lianrong's gaze followed the sound, and found that the man who had entered with Ruan Rougeau was none other than Wen Zhuang, whom she had met during her recent poisoning. When Wen Zhuang noticed Ruan Lianrong's gaze finally falling on him, he respectfully bowed, his tone full of sincerity. Xiaoming pays respects to the princess. Ruan Lianrong looked at that familiar face with surprise. "It's you." When Zhuang smiled, didn't expect to meet again so soon. Ruan Rougeau had come dressed as a woman, bringing Wen Zhuang along to investigate the nature of the remaining uncleared poison in Ruan Lianrong's body. Ruan Lianrong lay on the bed, placing her hand on Wen Zhuang's. This was a normal position for a doctor checking a patient's pulse, but in the enchanted Ruan Rougeau's eyes, it looked like Wen Zhuang was holding Ruan Lianrong's hand, with some inappropriate desire in his eyes, creating quite an ambiguous atmosphere. Naturally, Ruan Rougeau couldn't tolerate this. He pulled Wen Zhuang back by his thick collar, keeping him far from Ruan Lianrong. Hey, Mr. Wen, you're here to examine, but you're getting too close." Wen Zhuang dropped Ruan Lianrong's hand and turned around unhappily to look at Ruan Rougeau. "If your highness is displeased, then you do it." Ruan Rougeau immediately sat up straight, avoiding Wen Zhuang's gaze. You do it. I was rude. How dare I question the doctor?" Wen Zhuang composed his expression. His tone still showed some impatience. "If it weren't for your highness's years of friendship with Minister Chun, I wouldn't dare risk coming here." Ruan Rougeau looked annoyed. He perfunctorily agreed, feeling like every extra word was to his disadvantage. Yes, everything you say is right." Then the two started bickering back and forth. When Zhuang continued, "You cherish your sister, but I don't." Ruan Rougeau lazily clapped his hands, his voice casual and indolent. Right, my sister isn't good enough for you." Watching them bicker, Ruan Lianrong felt something odd about this atmosphere. Why did these two seem somewhat compatible? The more Ruan Lianrong watched them, the stranger the atmosphere felt, like a child full of questions. Ruan Rougeau and Wen Zhuang traded words back and forth, their argument growing more intense. They've basically ignored Ruan Lianrong, standing nearby. Ruan Lianrong weakly spoke up. "Could you both turn around and—" "Shut up!" Ruan Lianrong silently closed her mouth. When the two finally calmed down, Wen Zhuang checked Ruan Lianrong's pulse to determine the nature of the remaining poison. "Your Highness, based on the symptoms, the princess has been poisoned with the 5-day gut-breaking powder." Ruan Rougeau didn't understand these medicine names. He only cared about when Ruan Lianrong would recover. Ruan Rougeau impatiently said, "What 5 days or 6 days? Just cure my sister quickly. Whatever medicines you need, just say it." However, Wen Zhuang bowed and gave an answer that stunned them both. "Your Highness, only the Linen royal family can cure this poison." Behind his folding fan, Wen Zhuang's eyes flickered with a peculiar light. "I am incompetent." Ruan Lianrong remembered the sword pointed at her that day. She couldn't help but worry. "Didn't you already cure the poison from that sword, sir?" Wen Zhuang explained originally, this 5-day gut-breaking powder would take effect after 5 days. But due to the remaining wine and sword poison in the princess's body, Wen Zhuang held up his hand, showing Ruan Lianrong a number. "Now, there are only 3 days left." Ruan Lianrong opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. She staggered backward from the successive bad news, falling onto the bed but still not giving up hope. Is there any way to survive? Any method to cure the poison? When Zhuang snapped open his fan, smiling at Ruan Lianrong. I heard Prince Luanyu of Linen has arrived. Upon hearing of the princess's revival, he still seeks to marry her. When Zhuang narrowed his eyes slightly, looking steadily at Ruan Lianrong. Why not just marry him? No way. Ruan Lianrong and Ruan Ruzhou's rejection was immediate. When Zhuang hadn't expected such a resolute refusal, he was stunned, his expression turning unpleasant. He continued trying to justify himself. But I heard that Luanyu is handsome and refined. Absolutely not. Ruan Lianrong's pupils contracted, her eyes filled with fear. You've only heard about his refinement, but have you heard about his cruel nature, his extreme perversion, how he keeps male concubines, commits rape and abduction, does all kinds of evil, has a beast's heart in a human body, and a snake's venomous heart? Ruan Ruzhou and Ruan Lianrong took turns describing all the rumors about Luanyu's character. When Zhuang's expression had reached its worst possible state, seeing When Zhuang's silence, Ruan Ruzhou grabbed his wrist and began to protest. When Zhuang, how could I marry my sister to such trash? When Zhuang was speechless, Ruan Ruzhou, holding his hand, noticed something strange. Hey, why is your hand so cold? Ruan Lianrong came up with an idea. Brother, why don't we kidnap Luanyu and force them to give me the antidote? Ruan Ruzhou's eyes lit up. He exclaimed, that could work. When Zhuang watched the siblings putting their heads together, plotting to kidnap Luanyu, and couldn't help but feel speechless. Could these siblings be idiots? Just then, little Fuzi burst through the chamber doors. Bad news! Bad news! In his hurry, little Fuzi tripped on the doorframe as he entered. Jin Army. He looked at the three people before him. I saw the Jin Army commander leading his men, marching menacingly toward the palace. Ruan Ruzhou immediately reacted. He took off his clothes and said to Ruan Lianrong, quick, Rong, change in a palace, make clothes, and disguise yourself. I'll arrange for Mr. One to escort you out of the palace. Ruan Lianrong stopped Ruan Ruzhou's hand as he was removing his clothes. Her brows furrowed, clearly disapproving of his actions. Brother, I can't leave. I can't leave you alone. However, Ruan Lianrong was crying inside. Brother, it's not that I don't want to leave. The readers won't allow me to leave. Ruan Ruzhou gripped Ruan Lianrong's shoulders. His expression showed unprecedented tension and firmness. Wise Rong, you must go. The situation in Shangji is critical. Though extremely reluctant, Ruan Ruzhou chose to reveal the truth. The young emperor of Muse and the perverted prince of Linen want to kill you to revive the ancient divine sword. Ruan Lianrong was shocked. The emperor of Shangji wasn't their birth father, but their uncle, who was therefore wary of them both. Ruan Ruzhou continued, and our dear uncle certainly won't spare you either. Ruan Ruzhou's face darkened. Last time I secretly let you leave the palace. He's now using that against me, confining me. He wants to use this to depose me. By sending the Imperial Guards now, he wants to take you to tonight's star observation ceremony. At this moment, a group of Imperial Guards was marching toward them. However, Ruan Lianrong wasn't afraid. Instead, she seemed to be fired up. Brother, it's time for us to fight back. She held Ruan Ruzhou's hand tightly. The emperor suddenly calling for the star ceremony. Isn't he just trying to use me to change the purple star's image to legitimately depose you? Ruan Lianrong said firmly, I won't let him succeed. From the side, when Zhuang, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly spoke up. His thoughts differed from theirs. He didn't think these Imperial Guards were here for Ruan Lianrong. I'm afraid these guards are here for you, Your Highness. Hearing When Zhuang's words, both were stunned. As they spoke, the Imperial Guards reached the chamber doors. Crown Prince, Seventh Princess. The Jin Army commander bowed respectfully at the entrance. The Emperor has ordered me to escort you to the star observation ceremony. Those inside responded, Come in. The Jin commander opened the door. He then summoned servants. The servants carried a tray with formal attire. Bring it in, Your Highness. Please change first. Then he continued, The Emperor asked me to tell the Crown Prince, if you want to see the princess, bring her over. But dressing like this is truly improper. Though the words seemed ordinary, they carried control and oppression toward Ruan Ruzhou. It was unclear whether these were truly the Emperor's words or just someone throwing stones at the fallen crown prince who had lost real power. Ruan Lianrong stepped forward. What's proper or improper? She stood before the commander with folded arms, looking down at him. Commander Xiao, is your affair with the palace concubine considered proper? Thinking of the passage she wrote about Commander Zhao's affair with the palace concubine, Ruan Lianrong felt secretly pleased. She could expose all his secrets in an instant. Though she had won this verbal exchange, they still had to attend the star ceremony with the Jin army. In Shangji, people revered the stars. The royal family established the Celestial Office, specifically managing all matters related to stars and sacrificial ceremonies. They held annual star observation ceremonies at the stargazing tower. The star observation ceremony mainly observed national fortune and prayed for the people's welfare. The stargazing tower stood atop a mountain peak, said to be the closest place to the stars. Ruan Lianrong's mother had once been Shangji's renowned star reader. Remarkably, Ruan Lianrong's mother died of illness in her third year as imperial consort, when Ruan Lianrong was only 13. The following year, their father the emperor passed away. The entire palace wore hemp mourning clothes, and the nation mourned. Rumors spread that the late emperor had married a witch, corrupting Shangji's fortune. Because Crown Prince Ruan Ruzhou was too young, the throne went to their uncle. The current emperor and empress's willingness to keep Princess Ruan Lianrong had intriguing reasons. Ruan Lianrong walked to the screen. Behind it were the current emperor and empress. Greetings, your majesty. Ruan Lianrong knew only descendants of Xinwu could activate the heart observation formation. In her previous life, the princess was so arrogant because she relied on this fact. Ronger, please rise. Ruan Lianrong rose respectfully. Thank you, your majesty. Ruan Lianrong clearly knew how the current emperor felt when looking at her. It was the feeling of seeing an old love through a new person. Ruan Lianrong thought silently. Our emperor once deeply loved my mother. She curved her lips slightly. But love unrequited turned to hatred. The empress spoke from the side. There are still 2 hours until the ceremony. Ronger, go prepare in the side hall. She showed no kindness to Ruan Lianrong. If not for Ruan Lianrong protecting Ruan Ruzhou, her own son would have become crown prince long ago. Ruan Lianrong took her leave. The empress stared at her retreating figure, secretly thinking, you wretched girl, after tonight, you won't be able to protect anything. Back in her resting place, Ruan Lianrong finally relaxed. She collapsed in a chair, continuously fanning herself. Xiao Fuzi stood beside her. That act was so exhausting. Just then, a WeChat group chat interface appeared in midair. The group name was Kingdom Countdown 300 Days with 50 members. Ruan Lianrong sent a message. Dear readers, shouldn't you give me some cheat codes now? I'm an imposter. I don't know anything about the heart formation. The system replied. You created it. How can you not know? Ruan Lianrong cried. I only briefly mentioned it in my novel. I've never actually activated it. The system sighed. You brought this upon yourself. A reader named Sending Knives to Author Online sent a message, looking forward to seeing you mess up. Ruan Lianrong was speechless. Another reader named Is the Female Lead Offline Today sent, Good luck, little shell. Ruan Lianrong remained speechless. Then, a reader named Male Lead Is Mine spoke. I think the male lead will save you. Ruan Lianrong froze. I have a male lead? Who's the male lead? The Male Lead Is Mine reader was muted by the group admin. Ruan Lianrong was utterly speechless. Xiao Fuzi nudged Ruan Lianrong. Princess, maybe we should listen to the crown prince and escape. Just then, Commander Zhao's voice came from outside the window. Princess, princess. Ruan Lianrong went to open the window. Commander Xiao was crouching on the windowsill. Ruan Lianrong was embarrassed. Wow, Commander Xiao, you're quite skilled at this. Commander Xiao looked awkward. Princess, I've learned the truth. It's better to avoid this now. The Empress has set up an ambush at the stargazing tower. Once the heart formation activates, you'll be executed on the spot. Ruan Lianrong frowned. She mentally screamed, shocked by the Empress's ruthless plan. Execute? Don't they know Muse and Lennon are waiting for the marriage alliance? Commander Xiao stammered that they plan to replace you with the 5th princess. Ruan Lianrong was stunned. 5th sister? Ruan Lianrong grew angry. She slammed her teacup on the table with a bang. They've calculated this well. 5th sister has been neglected for years, and now they want to send her to her death. Ruan Lianrong said harshly, Do they think that with my death, no one can revive the divine sword? Ruan Lianrong continued cursing the dog emperor. If he can't have something, he won't let others have it either. As soon as she finished speaking, applause came from the rafters. Someone was standing there, having witnessed everything. I didn't expect the princess to be so intelligent. Ruan Lianrong looked up, demanding sharply, "Who's there?" Commander Zhao's hand moved to his sword hilt, ready to fight the uninvited guest. The person had silver hair and wore a white tiger mask, hanging upside down from the rafters. "I'm here to save the princess." In the next instant, they jumped behind Ruan Lianrong. She froze, not daring to move. Such swift movement. Before Ruan Lianrong could react, the person had scooped her up in a princess carry and left the room. "I'll be taking the princess now." Xiao Fuzi rushed to the window, calling out, "Princess." The person carried Ruan Lianrong over their shoulder to a room. Ruan Lianrong struggled violently, weakly crying, "Put me down!" Her voice trembled with fear. Her hands clutched tightly at her clothes, trying to break free from their control. When they entered the room, without any hesitation, the person threw Ruan Lianrong from their shoulder onto a soft, comfortable bed. Ruan Lianrong was caught off guard by the fall. After a moment of dizziness, she immediately looked around alertly, searching for a chance to escape. But the man before her acted like the master of this place, completely composed. The silver-haired man removed his mask, revealing an extraordinarily handsome face. It was a beauty that words couldn't describe. His attire wasn't common to the Central Plains, instead emanating a mysterious and enchanting aura. His gaze was deep and unfathomable, as if able to see through people's hearts. The man stood by the bed, examining Ruan Lianrong with those profound eyes. His lips curved into a smile as he let out a low but pleasant laugh. He said playfully, "Of course I am your." Before finishing his captivating words, he had already leaned forward, pinning down Ruan Lianrong. His hand gently gripped her chin, forcing her to look up. With a hint of playfulness, "Husband." Ruan Lianrong looked at the unmasked person before her. The unique earring and the dragon tiger pendant at his waist made her realize this person was actually Qi Feng, the young emperor of Mias. Rumors said Qi Feng ascended to the throne at age 8, and by 10, he had established his authority in court with thunderous presence, decisive in killing, ruthless in methods. By 16, he had conquered 5 countries, expanding his territory through warfare. When he issued the imperial decree, he was only 17. People said he was born under an unlucky star, causing all his consorts to die on their wedding nights. Thinking of this, Ruan Lianrong nervously spoke his name. Qi Feng openly acknowledged his identity. Then, Qi Feng placed his hand on Ruan Lianrong's shoulder, preparing for his next move. Frightened, Ruan Lianrong hurriedly called for him to stop. Qi Feng, as if expecting this, deliberately moved closer to Ruan Lianrong, softly asking what was wrong with his little lady. Ruan Lianrong tried her best to stay calm, but she was actually completely panicking. She never imagined that a supporting character from her novel could be so flirtatious. But then she thought following the plot would be simple. She started to convince herself she could do this. But she quickly realized, now that Linen and Muse divided this world, they would eventually go to war. And Shangji was caught between them. So for her own virtue, she had to take a risk. She loudly told Qi Feng she knew how to defeat Linen. Sure enough, Qi Feng became interested and released Ruan Lianrong. He sat up and asked her to explain with interest. So Ruan Lianrong began a long explanation of her strategy. Qi Feng was excited after hearing it. He took the opportunity to pin Ruan Lianrong to the bed, expressing his doubts. He had thought Ruan Lianrong was simple-minded, but after hearing her explanation, he instantly felt she wasn't ordinary. This sparked Qi Feng's interest in Ruan Lianrong even more. He gently lifted her flushed face, telling her he had a better idea. Suddenly, a flying dagger came toward them. Qi Feng protected Ruan Lianrong, but the dagger still grazed past her. It hit the pillar. Qi Feng took the note attached to the dagger. It read, "Only by opening the stargazing formation can one obtain the Dragon Eye Sword." Ruan Lianrong suddenly appeared beside him, standing on tiptoes and asking the soul-searching question. Could the Dragon Eye Sword mentioned be the legendary ancient divine sword? Qi Feng disdainfully pushed Ruan Lianrong aside, pondering. Initially, he hadn't destroyed Shang Shangji, wanting to let the country fend for itself. So he never sent troops to conquer it. Unexpectedly, the rare dragon-eye sword was here in Shangji. Qi Feng bowed to Ruan Lianrong. He now wanted to take Ruan Lianrong to the stargazing ceremony. Ruan Lianrong wanted to cry. The very thing she tried so hard to avoid had finally come. At this time, many onlookers had gathered outside the stargazing tower. Everyone was anxiously waiting for the ceremony to begin. Some were already becoming impatient, as everyone hoped for good omens this year. Shangji had faced continuous natural and human disasters this year, possibly all because Ruan Lianrong had come back to life. Some even said that after tonight, the emperor would have Ruan Lianrong sacrificed to heaven. Many in the crowd agreed. If Ruan Lianrong hadn't kept clinging to General Ning, he wouldn't have lost the battle. Just as they were saying the Xinwu clan deserved to die, Qi Feng arrived on horseback with Ruan Lianrong. Everyone was surprised that Qi Feng had found Ruan Lianrong. Qi Feng respectfully helped Ruan Lianrong dismount. Suddenly, a cry of Ronger interrupted Qi Feng. Ruan Lianrong's royal brother, and when Zhuang approached, Ruan Lianrong's royal brother glared at Qi Feng hostilely, pulled Ruan Lianrong behind him protectively, and shouted loudly. Qi Feng demanded to know who he was and what he had done to his sister. Anger and murderous intent appeared on Qi Feng's face as he revealed a dagger at his fingertips. Ruan Lianrong broke into a cold sweat instantly. Trying to maintain composure, she nervously held back her royal brother, shakily telling him she was fine. Upon hearing it was her royal brother, Qi Feng's attitude changed immediately, putting on a professional fake smile and trying to get friendly with Ruan Lianrong's brother. "Oh, so you're my brother-in-law?" But it was all a misunderstanding. Ruan Lianrong's brother became even angrier, rolling up his sleeves and shouting, "Who's your brother-in-law?" He even wanted to fight Qi Feng. Ruan Lianrong quickly held back her charging brother and whispered in his ear. She quietly told him that Qi Feng was actually the young emperor of Miz. At this point, when Zhuang began to rage, internally cursing Qi Feng for daring to compete with him for a woman. It was simply asking for death. Suddenly, someone called out to him from behind. They secretly communicated that Shangji's emperor and empress's people had all been eliminated. But Miz had only brought one person and one horse this time. When Zhuang was stunned at Qi Feng's boldness. In the Great Hall, Qi Feng formally announced to the emperor and empress that Ruan Lianrong would be his queen from now on. He held Ruan Lianrong's hand tightly as she rolled her eyes, unable to break free. She was mentally breaking down. She blamed herself for being foolish. If it weren't for wanting to portray the protagonists as good people, she wouldn't have written these supporting characters as psychopaths. Now these boomerangs were all coming back to hit her. These psychopaths were all coming out to mess with her mind. The emperor expressed his disapproval, but Qi Feng showed no respect. He even directly questioned why it was inappropriate. Then he dropped a bombshell, claiming they had already consummated their marriage. Ruan Lianrong cursed internally when Zhuang entered and began logical reasoning. It had only been an hour since Qi Feng took Ruan Lianrong, with half an hour spent on travel. Adding in the chaos and confusion, it seemed Qi Feng was incapable. When Zhuang continued to stir up trouble. Although from Yu's side, as a ruler of a country, making such a major decision about choosing an empress so hastily was truly disappointing. In an instant, while both men smiled on the surface, they were already at odds beneath. Qi Feng took the initiative. He questioned Wen Zhuang's identity, not forgetting to add a subtle insult. Were all the people of Shangji's emperor and empress so lacking in manners? Letting someone without any official title make such a commotion here. Wen Zhuang was momentarily speechless. In this situation, Ruan Lianrong had a sudden inspiration. Since everyone said she was destined to be an empress, she would defy that destiny. She would choose this man without rank or title as her husband. Following her heart, Ruan Lianrong suddenly embraced Wen Zhuang. She sweetly told Qi Feng that this man wasn't without position. Being her husband was his greatest title. She even shyly told Qi Feng that she and Wen Zhuang were the ones who had truly consummated their marriage. With a face full of happiness, Ruan Lianrong gently caressed Wen Zhuang's face, tenderly telling him she wanted to announce their relationship. Wen Zhuang was stunned by Ruan Lianrong's actions, his face turning red. Seeing Wen Zhuang's lack of response, Ruan Lianrong pinched him hard. Wen Zhuang immediately got into character, seamlessly playing along with Ruan Lianrong's act, sweetly calling her wife repeatedly. Then, with newfound confidence, Wen Zhuang turned to Qi Feng and boldly rebuked him. Even the king of Muse couldn't arbitrarily kidnap civilians. and force someone to be his wife. Qi Feng seemed to be listening, actually appearing to seriously consider what Wen Zhuang had said. Ruan Lianrong couldn't help but sigh internally. One could only rely on oneself. A psychopath like Qi Feng couldn't help at all. This boomerang deserved to hit her. At this moment, the emperor spoke some diplomatic words, saying it was Ruan Lianrong's blessing to be loved by both of them. However, today, Ruan Lianrong had more important matters to attend to. They would discuss further after the official ceremony. The emperor and empress began urging that the auspicious time had arrived. They needed to quickly activate the heart-observing formation. Ruan Lianrong wanted to cry, but had no tears. This wasn't an auspicious time at all. It was clearly her time of death. It was all because of her setting that this body's which blood would be drained when touching the heart-observing formation. By then, there wouldn't be anything left of her. She could only summon Master Shu. Ruan Lianrong helplessly asked Master Shu if she had any chance of resurrection. Master Shu calmly told her there was absolutely no chance of revival. Face the storm head-on. But Ruan Lianrong didn't give up. As she turned to walk away, she kept telling herself she must find a way to bypass this plot point. Suddenly, she was grabbed. Ruan Lianrong turned to see Wen Zhuang. He wanted to accompany her. Everyone gathered before the heart-observing formation. Looking at the huge formation on the wall, Ruan Lianrong had some doubts. Would such a beautiful formation really drain her blood? She couldn't think of a solution. She couldn't just chop it down with an axe. The formation couldn't be destroyed that way. Master Shu appeared calmly beside Ruan Lianrong, telling her that the heart-observing formation was connected to the book world's lifeline. If chopped with an axe, the book world would be damaged, leading to uncontrollable consequences. Ruan Lianrong abandoned this violent idea. She gently placed her hand on the formation, thinking about using her strengths. Among the 36 stratagems, she should use the best one. As the author of this book, how could she not come up with a solution? Well, actually she couldn't. Ruan Lianrong wanted to mourn for herself. Why had she given Ruan Lianrong such a setting? But suddenly, she had an inspiration. She had set up the language before, the sacred language. Ruan Lianrong's life as a royal sacrificial vessel. But after transmigrating here, she hadn't experienced the royal decree yet. But the Taoist would soon experience the sacrificial vessel. She had to make them believe first that she would only be useful as a sacrifice after becoming queen. At least this way she could live longer. So she started acting. The emperor behind her asked how she felt. Wen Zhuang quickly came forward to support her. Ruan Lianrong immediately acted weak, saying she felt a very powerful force. It seemed to be calling her. She even faintly heard dragon roars. The three people with ulterior motives realized this must be the dragon eye sword they were looking for. But Ruan Lianrong suddenly changed her tone, telling everyone the dragon eye sword rejected her because she hadn't become the ordained one yet. It wouldn't resonate with her. Everyone watched closely, like subway passengers sneaking peeks at their phones. At this point, Qi Feng stepped forward with a solution. He suggested they should immediately clarify their relationship, so she would become Muse Empress. She would be the rightful ordained ruler. Ruan Lianrong quickly denied this. She was very confident her made-up story would fool them. She opened her eyes and slowly explained that she needed to become the empress of a unified empire. Hearing this, Qi Feng calmly revealed Ruan Lianrong's purpose. After activating the heart-observing formation, she wanted Qi Feng to attack Linen. This was exactly what Ruan Lianrong was waiting for. She smiled at Qi Feng, making up the story as she acted. She told him that was correct, but King Wan Yu of Linen loved her. If Qi Feng attacked Linen just to marry her, he wouldn't let it go easily. He would fight to the death because his love for her was so heavy. She had attempted suicide before just to escape his love. Ruan Lianrong's shameless act shocked everyone. The emperor thought what she said made sense. He decided to postpone activating the heart-observing formation and dismissed everyone for the day. Everyone was delighted. When Zhuang looked at Ruan Lianrong, feeling she was different from before, she was becoming more and more interesting. A few days later, news spread that the princess's mansion was recruiting servants, both male and female. The conditions were excellent, with room and board provided. People rushed to apply, and those who got positions ran through the streets in excitement, shouting that they could finally see the princess. Wen Zhuang watched in confusion and decided to check what was happening. The guard tore down the notice and handed it to him. It clearly stated that the princess's mansion was recruiting beautiful advisors and would even pay wages. Their main duty would be accompanying the princess to appreciate flowers and chat. Such a good opportunity. When Zhuang had to check it out. The princess's mansion was indeed crowded with people and filled with fragrance. Ruan Lianrong was drooling. While having servants arrange these beauties into the courtyard, she actually had her own calculations. According to the book's setting, the witch who could switch identities with her would be discovered by her royal brother among these advisors, so she could exploit this loophole. As long as Ruan Lianrong followed the original plot, she could successfully escape the imperial city. Just as she was feeling pleased, a servant told her someone had left a note saying they would wait for her in the back garden. Ruan Lianrong went to the back garden with curiosity. She guessed it might be Wen Zhuang, but when she arrived, she saw a beauty playing the zither. Ruan Lianrong instantly blushed. Upon seeing Ruan Lianrong, the person stopped playing. They gently introduced themselves to the princess. Their name was Jiang Qixin, and they had left the note hoping just to pay respects to the princess. Hearing this name, Ruan Lianrong's heart stirred. She confirmed again if the person was really called Jiang Qixin. The answer was definitely yes. Jiang Qixin even asked surprisingly if she knew them. Ruan Lianrong instinctively said yes, but then quickly denied it, claiming she didn't know them. But they would soon get to know each other. It turned out the master of Dark Night Chamber was Jiang Qixin, whose real name was Jiang Yalan. While traveling among common people, they posed as a romance poet called Jiang Qixin. But this character should have appeared much later in the story. Why did they appear so early? This person was the hope of the Shangji kingdom. Ruan Lianrong secretly rejoiced, looking at the person before her with ill intent. Heaven truly hadn't abandoned her. Seeing Ruan Lianrong's expression, Jiang Qixin became somewhat scared, thinking she might do something. They could only wave their hands, explaining they were just a humble zither player. The princess needn't be so polite. Ruan Lianrong immediately stepped forward to clarify, telling Jiang Qixin they weren't an ordinary zither player. Their zither was the most sacred weapon. Their music was the most beautiful sacred music, and they were the light in her heart. Jiang Qixin looked embarrassed, quietly wondering to themselves, did Ruan Lianrong really know them? But Ruan Lianrong hadn't realized this. She hugged the zither, filled with hopeful visions. Now there was finally hope for saving the country. So she strategically told Jiang Qixin that since they had left their notice, they were now an advisor to the princess's mansion. The mansion could protect them in various ways. She returned the zither to Jiang Qixin. However, Ruan Lianrong accidentally stepped on Jiang Qixin's foot. They dropped the zither and fell towards Jiang Qixin's embrace. Indeed, she fell into their arms. Her heart was racing. The atmosphere became unusually ambiguous, both of their faces turning red. In reality, their hands had each desperately grabbed the flying zither, causing them to fall in a strange position. When Zhuang, watching this scene from afar, angrily struck a tree trunk and let out a cold laugh. Sourly looking at the two disheveled people in the distance, he walked nearby and reminded them that the seventh princess's injuries hadn't healed yet. In such cold weather, she should take care of her health. Ruan Lianrong immediately got up from Jiang Qixin, straightened her clothes, and awkwardly agreed that it was getting late. She should head back soon. Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Qixin secretly moved closer, gently breathing into Ruan Lianrong's ear, saying they had guessed their clothes, which was why they were disheveled. Ruan Lianrong almost lost control. Then, Jiang Qixin resumed their proper gentleman demeanor. Ruan Lianrong felt she would turn into a pervert if she stayed longer. She cursed how beauty could mislead people and had to make an excuse about preparing for tonight's banquet to leave first. When Zhuang and Jiang Qixin finally confronted each other, when Zhuang directly revealed Jiang Qixin's identity, the mighty master of Dark Night Chamber, using such an elegant alias. He questioned why they infiltrated the princess's mansion. Jiang Qixin remained calm and retorted, surprised to find the ruler of Linen Kingdom at the princess's mansion. The two immediately became hostile. Wen Zhuang withdrew first from the confrontation. Jiang Qixin held their zither tightly. They began to get excited. Cicadas chirped continuously in the night at the princess's mansion. At the banquet, Ruan Lianrong drooled, looking at the delicacies served on the table. But she pretended to be reserved, saying it would be best if everyone enjoyed the food together. The guard mentioned that the snow lotus fruit was personally picked by Wen Zhuang for the princess, hoping the princess would taste it. The maid said Jiang Qixin personally cooked royal jelly almond cookies, hoping the princess would try the soft lotus paste. She successfully began to struggle, knowing eating both would surely cause stomach problems. But choosing between the two was difficult. Both were not to be trifled with. It was truly frustrating. At this moment, Wen Zhuang and Jiang Qixin stood up simultaneously. One said the princess's injuries hadn't healed, so she should eat the fresh snow lotus fruit. It would be good for her health, so she should eat mine. The other said royal jelly was extremely precious, perfect for strengthening the princess's body. Of course, she should eat my soft lotus paste. Ruan Lianrong faced this blessed trouble with worry. They were just advisors, yet already showing signs of jealousy. If this were in the imperial harem, wouldn't she be troubled every day? Indeed, men and petty people are hard to deal with. The weak, pitiful, and helpless princess, caught between two men who had no self-awareness. They insisted she choose one. This century's difficult problem truly troubled the seventh princess. At this moment, a man stepped forward, first congratulating Ruan Lianrong on recruiting such talented people, saying it was heaven's blessing. However, during this long night, wouldn't the princess feel bored? He offered to present a special program. Ruan Lianrong became interested. The man continued, saying the princess would surely like it, so she asked him to present it quickly. When Zhuang finally understood that Ruan Lianrong's refusal to marry him was because she wanted to spend her days in pleasure at the princess's mansion. A group of maids carried in a giant lotus flower. The petals slowly opened. Inside sat a man dressed in brilliant clothes, with beautiful features and extraordinary charm. It was young Master Feng Ruo from the House of Supreme Beauty, who reportedly had admired Ruan Lianrong for long and came specially to entertain her. Ruan Lianrong was such a rare beauty, it was too wonderful. Ruan Lianrong rested her face in her hands, silently swooning. She hadn't expected ancient beauties to be so enchanting, but she wondered if she had ever written about a character like Feng Ruo. Could it be that her butterfly effect had changed the plot, creating new supporting characters? While Ruan Lianrong was still pondering, Feng Ruo had already gracefully descended and made a heartfelt confession to her, thanking Ruan Lianrong for this opportunity. As red silk swept past, Ruan Lianrong blushed and her heart raced, stammering a response that no thanks were needed. The rapidly falling countdown numbers suddenly made Ruan Lianrong come to her senses, regaining rationality. Ruan Lianrong quickly realized something was wrong, just as she noticed the weapon-like glint in Feng Ruo's hand. The next moment, Feng Ruo leaped up, rushing at Ruan Lianrong with a dagger. Narrowly escaping Feng Ruo's assassination attempt, Ruan Lianrong felt relieved at not having her throat cut. While wondering how such a beauty had turned into a viper, Feng Ruo remained calm and composed. Since they had been discovered, they wouldn't show mercy anymore. With a shout, they lunged at Ruan Lianrong again, saying die. At the critical moment, when Zhuang appeared just in time, carrying Ruan Lianrong back, he pondered whether to use his martial arts. If he used his skills, Ruan Lianrong would likely discover his disguised identity. However, seeing Ruan Lianrong tightly closing her eyes in fear in his arms, when Zhuang compromised, he protect her just this once? Feng Ruo sneered, rushing behind Wen Zhuang and stabbing directly into his shoulder. Wen Zhuang disregarded this minor wound, calculating that he could use it to gain Ruan Lianrong's favor. As Feng Ruo pressed the dagger harder, Jiang Qixin, watching from aside, sensed trouble. He secretly flicked out silk threads, wrapping them around Feng Ruo's neck and tightening them, instantly taking Feng Ruo's life. Meanwhile, Wen Zhuang, unstable from his injury, knelt down while holding Ruan Lianrong tightly. As Ruan Lianrong quietly opened her eyes, wondering how she was still alive, Wen Zhuang had already loosened his grip and collapsed into her arms. It was Wen Zhuang who saved her. He let out a muffled groan, and Ruan Lianrong came to her senses, discovering his wound. She anxiously called for the royal physician. Seeing her so worried, Wen Zhuang couldn't help feeling secretly pleased. Then he fell unconscious with relief. After experiencing such a thrilling assassination attempt, Ruan Lianrong's emotions were still unsettled. With a thud, She collapsed onto the table, unable to stop replaying the dangerous scene. If Wen Zhuang hadn't taken the blow for her, she would surely have died on the spot. Ruan Lianrong lamented that she had no special abilities, yet this world was so dangerous. She could easily get into trouble. At this moment, the system Mr. Shu, cosplaying as Game Meat, appeared with his mysterious smile, reminding Ruan Lianrong if she hadn't noticed the countdown increasing instead of decreasing. Ruan Lianrong sat up startled, realizing she hadn't noticed this. She couldn't help tearing up, wondering if her sincere repentance had finally moved the readers. But the next second, the system shattered her illusion, pointing out that Wen Zhuang was the biggest variable. Ever since Wen Zhuang, who shouldn't have appeared in the storyline, showed up, many things had experienced a butterfly effect. Ruan Lianrong suddenly understood and deeply agreed. Perhaps her destiny-changing advantage was Wen Zhuang. Excited, Ruan Lianrong hugged the system and gave it a kiss, praising it endlessly for being so useful. Thinking Wen Zhuang might be her great advantage, Ruan Lianrong rushed to find him without delay. She excitedly called out, "Wen Zhuang, Mr. Wen." Dr. Wen along the way, enthusiastically pushing open his door. Before she could finish asking about his injury, she completely froze. Ruan Lianrong's cheeks burned as she covered her face, her heart racing. It was her first time seeing a man's bare abs in 2 lifetimes. How could she not take advantage to look her fill? Ruan Lianrong secretly let her gaze linger on Wen Zhuang's firm abs, but Wen Zhuang's thrown outer garment directly covered her face. When Ruan Lianrong pulled the clothes off her head, Wen Zhuang had already dressed. He deliberately moved close to her, teasingly asking if she had something dirty on her. Ruan Lianrong was overwhelmed with embarrassment, but Wen Zhuang moved even closer, trapping her against the wall in a firm cabinet. The ambiguous actions and tone made Ruan Lianrong's imagination run wild. Was he going to kiss her? Ruan Lianrong felt lightheaded, her face red as if about to explode. She thought to herself this might be moving too fast, but closed her eyes with slight anticipation. Just as Wen Zhuang slowly approached Ruan Lianrong's lips, the guard crouching on the beam suddenly coughed twice. Ruan Lianrong was dazed and confused, wondering if she had just heard a QQ message notification. With the guard's interruption, Wen Zhuang naturally couldn't continue. He took his clothes from Ruan Lianrong's hands. Muttering Ruan Lianrong's name, she asked disappointedly, "Did you just want your clothes back?" Wen Zhuang tried to maintain his composure. Under Wen Zhuang's teasing, Ruan Lianrong awkwardly made excuses to leave, hastily fleeing from his room. She completely forgot her original purpose for coming. After she left, Enwei reported to Wen Zhuang about the investigation results of the assassination attempt. They only knew the assassin came from the top assassin organization Yu Shuemin, but couldn't trace who specifically ordered the hit. Wen Zhuang acknowledged this, then suddenly shouted angrily, telling Enwei not to crouch on the roof beams next time. Enwei didn't understand, but could only nod pitifully in agreement at the princess's mansion. Ruan Lianrong sat in her chair like a dignified lady, resting her chin on her hand with legs crossed. She thought about her description of Shangji country in her writing. In the story, Shangji was located between Muse and Linen, lacking military strength but wealthy. Due to her unfinished writing, Shangji's path to prosperity was cut off, directly leading to its downfall. Ruan Lianrong pondered, then suddenly had an inspiration. There was more than one way to save Shangji. She couldn't put all her hopes on the main characters. Full of hope, she imagined that like other travelers, she could introduce glass-making technology. This would surely help turn Shangji's fate around and save her life. Ruan Lianrong felt confident. Then she suddenly remembered the poison in her body, with the antidote only available in Linen. She wondered why she hadn't shown symptoms after 3 days. Just as she was about to go ask Wen Zhuang why, she encountered Qi Feng standing at her door with a smile. Ruan Lianrong was so startled she fell backwards. Qi Feng couldn't understand the fear on her face. Ruan Lianrong thought about the psychopath she had written. She knew better than anyone how terrifying Qi Feng was. She remained silent. Qi Feng spoke about their unfinished wedding night, expressing regret. But Ruan Lianrong knew better. This psychopath Qi Feng wasn't truly regretful. He must be planning to fake the consummation, then kill her as a warning to others. Chi Feng moved closer, gently cupping her face and speaking sweetly about the beautiful evening. He coldly dismissed the fear in her eyes, saying he would do as she wished. Ruan Lianrong didn't believe his lies, loudly questioning why she should marry someone who never touches women, only to live as a widow. Hearing her words, Chi Feng's face darkened as he coldly remarked that the princess seemed to know him very well. Ruan Lianrong thought about the character she had written. She knew best that celibate handsome men were most attractive. She bluntly spoke her thoughts, saying Chi Feng's behavior showed his lack of love. This little psychopath Chi Feng was traumatized by his psychopathic parents. Chi Feng demanded to know how she knew about his past. Ruan Lianrong realized she had spoken her thoughts aloud. Frightened, she hid behind a table. Chi Feng smiled helplessly, trying to reassure her not to be afraid. He promised not to hurt her. Then, changing the subject, he discussed her divination abilities and shared his concerns about war scenes he'd been seeing in his dreams for the past month. He wanted answers from her. Ruan Lianrong felt anxious. These were the scenes from a written ending. She wondered if Chi Feng was also from the novel world, since he could dream about the original ending. Perhaps he had divination powers. Lost in thought, she pinched his face, then dismissed the idea. Chi Feng grabbed her hand, calling her Rong Rong affectionately. Ruan Lianrong blushed at his flirtatious words. Suddenly, Wen Zhuang's knock broke the awkward atmosphere. He said he came to thank Ruan Lianrong with a knowing smile. Ruan Lianrong, relieved, pushed Chi Feng away and quickly made an excuse to go shopping with Wen Zhuang. Wen Zhuang was naturally willing, taking her hand gently. Ruan Lianrong blushed again. However, Chi Feng grabbed Ruan Lianrong's other hand, saying he wanted to go too. Neither Chi Feng nor Wen Zhuang would yield, both looking eagerly at Ruan Lianrong. She was caught in a dilemma, her head spinning. She worried internally that choosing either side would lead to death. Breaking into a cold sweat, she quietly suggested, "Let's all go together then." Though the night market was lively, Ruan Lianrong, squeezed between the two men, showed no excitement. With a stern face, she quietly tugged at Wen Zhuang's sleeve and whispered, asking about her condition. She worried that though 3 days had passed, she was still alive and well, wondering if she might suddenly die. Wen Zhuang gently comforted her, saying she needn't worry, suggesting she might have unknowingly encountered something that counteracted the poison. Still concerned, Ruan Lianrong asked Wen Zhuang again to confirm if she was really fine. Unable to rest easy, she took his hand, asking for another diagnosis. Meanwhile, Chi Feng looked around and spotted a riddle-guessing stall. His eyes lit up, and he pulled Ruan Lianrong over, wanting her to play with him. Ruan Lianrong found it childish and showed her disdain. Chi Feng refused to accept this. He deliberately challenged Ruan Lianrong to help him win the rabbit lantern he liked. The stall owner cheerfully presented the riddle. While Chi Feng looked confused, Ruan Lianrong quickly provided the answer. She then confidently solved riddle after riddle, easily winning the rabbit lantern Chi Feng wanted. She asked Wen Zhuang which lantern he wanted. He paused, then mischievously said he wanted a rabbit lantern too. But there was only one rabbit lantern. Both Chi Feng and Wen Zhuang eagerly looked at Ruan Lianrong again. They both reached out to her. Before Ruan Lianrong could make her choice, Ning Wugui suddenly appeared on horseback. He stopped in front of Ruan Lianrong. Ruan Lianrong wondered why he was here. Ning Wugui also asked why she was there. They looked at each other, and Ning Wugui explained he was following imperial orders to catch thieves who had stolen palace treasures. Guards reported the city gates were sealed, but no thieves carrying treasures were found leaving the city. Ning Wugui frowned, wondering if the treasure was still hidden in the city. Behind Ruan Lianrong's group, a fruit vendor sneered and suddenly lunged toward her. As the thief tried to attack Ruan Lianrong, Wen Zhuang shouted insolent and pulled her away just in time. Ning Wugui and Chi Feng joined the fight against the thief. Wen Zhuang helped Ruan Lianrong move away. Curious about the fight's cause, Ruan Lianrong understood after Wen Zhuang's explanation that the vendor was the thief Ning Wugui was pursuing. The three fought fiercely but couldn't subdue the thief. Chi Feng mocked Ning Wugui, saying his reputation as Shangji's war god was undeserved. He then struck the thief. Ning Wugui scoffed and thrust his spear through the thief's chest. Seeing this, Ruan Lianrong stepped back involuntarily, unable to believe a living person could lose their life so suddenly before her eyes. Wen Zhuang covered her eyes, gently telling her not to look. But Ruan Lianrong couldn't calm down. Was this the event she had written? Life seemed so fragile, yet the two men acted as if it were normal. Ning Wugui apologized for the disturbance. Ruan Lianrong forced a smile, saying she should thank them for saving her. Noticing her distress, Ning Wugui tried to inquire, but Ruan Lianrong stopped him and left alone. That night, the system detected Ruan Lianrong's low spirits and appeared concerned. Ruan Lianrong was dejected, experiencing for the first time the cruelty of the world she had written, having witnessed a life vanish before her eyes. She determined to change the original story's war plot. The system didn't question further, knowing how to make the changes. After some thought, Ruan Lianrong firmly decided she couldn't stay in Shangji anymore. She had to go to Linen. Having made up her mind to leave Shangji, she directly told Ruan Rougeau she wanted to go to Linen for a political marriage. Faced with Ruan Lianrong's righteous and unusually determined attitude, Ruan Rougeau expressed his helplessness, saying that since she had previously broken off the engagement, it was uncertain whether Linen would still agree to the alliance. Ruan Lianrong wouldn't give up so easily. She cried that she was dying, and only going to Linen could get her the antidote. Ruan Rougeau was shocked and hurriedly called for Wen Zhuang. Under Ruan Lianrong's hint, although puzzled about why she suddenly wanted to go to Linen, Wen Zhuang played along with her plan. Ruan Rougeau believed Wen Zhuang completely and promised to help his sister arrange the marriage alliance with Linen to save her life. Ruan Lianrong was happy about her brother's agreement, but worried about dealing with Linen's ruler. Wen Zhuang naturally praised her and told her not to worry. However, Ruan Rougeau became suspicious, noting that Ruan Lianrong's lively demeanor didn't seem like someone who was ill. Worried about being exposed, Ruan Lianrong quickly fled with Wen Zhuang, almost in a panic. This made Ruan Rougeau even more suspicious. After escaping from Ruan Rougeau, Ruan Lianrong directly asked why Wen Zhuang helped her deceive her brother. Wen Zhuang suddenly stopped, causing Ruan Lianrong, who was following closely behind, to bump into his back. Wen Zhuang turned around with a smile, leaning close to Ruan Lianrong, who was holding her nose in pain, speaking with a flirtatious and ambiguous tone. He said he was just being a compassionate doctor, and that he had just made up the part about Linen. Ruan Lianrong's cheeks reddened, thinking how handsome Wen Zhuang was for a doctor. She began to have some expectations about Linen's ruler. Just then, Ning Wugui passed by with his soldiers. They were muttering about how no wonder the princess wasn't bothering the general today. She had found someone new. Ning Wugui looked at Wen Zhuang and Ruan Lianrong in shock, then left dejectedly with his men. Finally, Ruan Lianrong received the imperial edict for her marriage alliance with Linen. As she held it, she was excited internally, now having a chance to save the world she had written. Ruan Lianrong was very happy. However, Ruan Rougeau was somewhat reluctant, promising he would always be there for her. Noticing his emotions, Ruan Lianrong hugged him, smiling and promising she would find a way to bring peace to this world. Soon, Ruan Lianrong joined the grand wedding procession heading to Linen. When the procession stopped to rest, Wen Zhuang knocked on the carriage to wake up the drooling, deeply sleeping Ruan Lianrong. He offered her a spiritual medicine to refresh her mind. Ruan Lianrong thought it was like Florida water, not knowing it was just Wen Zhuang's prank. She opened the bottle and took a big sniff, then immediately felt sick and fainted in the carriage, shouting in anger. While still angry, someone knocked on her carriage again. She felt her last thread of patience snap. She stormed out of the carriage ready to curse, but was embarrassed to find it was Ning Wugui. Ning Wugui reported they were still 3 days from Linen and needed to cross the mountain range to reach the next post station. He warned about bandits in the area. Ruan Lianrong returned to her carriage, sighing about the tedium of ancient long-distance travel. The system suddenly appeared, eagerly inviting Ruan Lianrong to read the comments. Ruan Lianrong was puzzled by comments requesting exciting scenes of bandits attempting to kidnap the bride. While criticizing how cliché copyright this plot would be, Ning Wugui shouted that bandits were attacking and to protect the princess. The bandits had indeed come, but not to kidnap the bride. As Ruan Lianrong had sarcastically mentioned about highway murder, they had come to take the princess's head. Ruan Lianrong was shocked by this dangerous plot twist. The countdown began dropping rapidly. Suddenly, an arrow shot straight towards her. She closed her eyes tightly, thinking this was truly the end. Ruan Lianrong prepared herself for death. However, Wen Zhuang appeared just in time, blocking the arrow. Ruan Lianrong was so grateful she almost cried. He had saved her again. Ning Wugui shouted for Wen Zhuang to take Ruan Lianrong away. Without hesitation, Wen Zhuang picked her up and ran. The two shared a horse. Just as Ruan Lianrong finished explaining that Ning Wuge was an undefeated warrior and they should hurry away, she was horrified to see the countdown dropping rapidly. Could Ning Wuge die here? Thinking this, Ruan Lianrong quickly asked Wen Zhuang to go back and save Ning Wuge. Wen Zhuang misunderstood, thinking Ruan Lianrong cared more deeply for Ning Wuge than her own life. But with Ruan Lianrong's firm response, he turned back. By then, Ning Wuge was surrounded by bandits. Just as they were about to strike Ning Wuge, a loud shout to spare him rang out. Ning Wuge was shocked. Ruan Lianrong and Wen Zhuang had returned. Ruan Lianrong began sweet-talking the fierce bandits, trying to deceive them by saying their group was fake. She claimed she wasn't the real princess of Shangji. The bandits naturally didn't believe her and approached menacingly with their swords. Wen Zhuang protected Ruan Lianrong behind him. She continued playfully, saying the undefeated warrior Ning Wuge couldn't possibly be captured so easily. She mocked herself for not being princess-like, just a poor scapegoat forced by the emperor. This time the bandits believed her, saying Ruan Lianrong was just like their camp's kitchen maid. Wen Zhuang secretly laughed behind her, while Ruan Lianrong was angry but dared not speak. Seeing the bandits believed her, she continued deceiving them, saying killing their group wasn't important, they should focus on their real target. Under her brainwashing, the bandits believed her and agreed to spare their lives, deciding to take them back to their camp to meet their young leader. As the countdown time increased, Ruan Lianrong finally breathed a sigh of relief. They had escaped death for now. The bandits led them deep into the forest, tying them tightly together. They threatened to kill them if they tried to escape. Ruan Lianrong meekly agreed, while shrinking her neck. After the bandits left, Ruan Lianrong tried to break free, but Ning Wuge couldn't use his internal energy to break the ropes. Ning Wuge blamed himself for getting them captured and being unable to escape. Ruan Lianrong playfully said she could break free. Using a hidden dagger, she cut her own ropes. Just as she was about to help untie Wen Zhuang, she tripped on the ropes at her feet, losing her balance. Before falling, she instinctively grabbed the rope around Wen Zhuang's waist. Her pull caused the stake binding all three of them to fall. Ruan Lianrong lamented she would be crushed to death, while Wen Zhuang knelt on one knee to support the weight. As Ruan Lianrong got up to leave, her lips accidentally met Wen Zhuang's as he turned his head. Both froze in place. The oblivious Ning Wuge spoke up from behind, snapping them both back to reality, embarrassed and shy. After all three escaped, Ruan Lianrong said they couldn't ignore these bandits. Though Ning Wuge understood border affairs, he didn't know about the bandit uprising. Just then, Wen Zhuang blurted out that these bandits were the Qingsha gang. At the mention of Qingsha gang, Ruan Lianrong gasped in shock. She knew the plot she had written well. The Qingsha gang leader's rebellion was a major reason for Shangji's downfall. To change the ending, the Qingsha gang must be eliminated. Having made up her mind, Ruan Lianrong showed a sinister smile. Frightening both Wen Zhuang and Ning Wuge into backing away, she declared they would take down the entire Qingsha gang. In the daylight, servants escorted the young leader of the Qingsha gang to the small house where Ruan Lianrong and the others were held. "Young master, I've confined them here," the servant said with deep bows. The Qingsha gang's young leader was picking his ear, responding absent-mindedly. Then he stopped and showed a lecherous smile. "By the way, how does that fake imperial princess look? Is she pretty?" The servant quickly replied, "Yes, quite beautiful." The young leader turned around, giving his follower an annoyed look. "If she's pretty, why did you come along?" He stepped forward and pushed open the door. "Remember, no matter what sounds you hear from inside, don't enter." The servant had to obey and withdraw. The young leader entered with a serious expression. He harshly questioned those imprisoned. "So you're the ones impersonating the imperial wedding party?" The three inside were tied to a thick wooden stake, their hands bound with thin rope. Ning Wuge glared at him fiercely, while Wen Zhuang showed little reaction. The young leader continued, "Once you've entered Qingsha gang's territory, you must hand over all your gold and jewels, and no one leaves." He stepped forward and grabbed Ruan Lianrong's chin, grinning, "Especially you, pretty one. You could be my 38th concubine." Ruan Lianrong put on a pitiful expression, looking even more endearing. "Can I only be the 38th concubine?" Wen Zhuang secretly held back his laughter. Ruan Lianrong continued, "If I tell you the real whereabouts of the imperial princess, how will you reward me, young master?" The young leader beamed with joy, saying smugly, "Really? If you tell me where the imperial princess is, I'll marry you immediately as my main wife." Seeing the fish take the bait, Ruan Lianrong smiled softly. All right, come closer, my lord. Ning Wugui had already raised the burlap sack, quietly waiting nearby. As the young leader leaned in, the next moment, the sack was thrown over his head. Ning Wugui quickly tied the opening tight. The young leader struggled, but could only make muffled sounds. The ropes binding the three had been untied. Ning Wugui and Wen Zhuang began punching and kicking the hooded gang leader. Ouch! It hurts! The young leader curled up on the ground, covering his head. Ruan Lianrong watched the show, adding fuel to the fire. Young master, didn't you want me to be rougher? The guards at the door could only hear Ruan Lianrong's voice and their master's screams. Young master, scream louder. One servant couldn't bear it anymore. He said hesitantly, the young master's screams sound awful. Shouldn't we go in? But another servant was unfazed. You don't know. This is how our young master plays with all his concubines. It's fine. Little did they know that after Ning Wugui and Wen Zhuang finished teaching him a lesson, the young leader was quietly hiding behind the door, ready to deal with the two guards. Wen Zhuang gently pushed the door open slightly. I'll take the east side. Ning Wugui nodded. Then I'll go west. We'll meet up later. The two chatting guards were struck at their pressure points and kicked away. Soon, all servants in the Qingsha gang were bound and kneeling before the three. Their young leader, still hooded, knelt in the middle, all of them grimacing in pain. Ruan Lianrong held a tree branch from somewhere, tapping it slowly against her palm. Is everyone here? Wen Zhuang replied, General Ning is impressive. He even caught the kitchen chef. The entire Qingsha gang was defeated. Ning Wugui stood behind with one hand on his hip. You're too kind. Ruan Lianrong stopped tapping the branch. In that case, I'll begin the interrogation. She pointed the branch at the young leader. Who are you? Speak up quickly. The young leader just kept crying. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I am Ruan Lianrong. The burlap sack was removed from his head, revealing his badly bruised face. He defiantly said, My father is the Qingsha gang leader. He's very rich. He'll ransom me back. Hearing this, Ruan Lianrong's smile became more sinister. Though the Qingsha gang has been evil in recent years, they only seek money. But you try to kill me right away. Tell me, who sent you? The young leader's eyes darted around, seemingly trying to avoid the question, but this only proved his guilt more clearly. And this matter definitely had someone pulling the strings behind it. While he was still hesitating, a sword was placed against his neck. Ning Wugui said harshly, I don't want to hear nonsense. The Qingsha gang leader trembled and pulled out a paper from his pocket. It was a mysterious man. He gave me this prescription. His hands shook as he presented the paper. He ordered me to kill the imperial princess. Ruan Lianrong took the prescription. The gang leader cried heavily. He said he could help Qingsha gang conquer Shangji. It was all his doing, not mine. Ruan Lianrong, who ran an apothecary, pondered thoughtfully. No wonder Ning Wugui, usually so formidable, couldn't defeat those bandits earlier. It was because of this powder. Without further words, Ruan Lianrong grabbed the gang leader's collar and demanded, What other clues about this mysterious person? The gang leader was sweating profusely. With large tears rolling down, he said, I don't know anything else, but he said his name was Luan Yu. Hearing that name, both Wen Zhuang and Ruan Lianrong's expressions changed. Ruan Lianrong raised her hand to strike. Empty words. Do you have proof? The gang leader quickly replied, In my clothes, there's a letter from him. You can see for yourself. Ning Wugui crouched down, searched his clothes, found the letter from Luan Yu, and handed it to Ruan Lianrong. Princess, look. Ruan Lianrong examined the letter, frowning. The signature was indeed Luan Yu's. She clutched the letter tightly. But in my understanding, King Luan Yu of Linen isn't the type to conspire with villains. She stared at the letter, deep in thought. Could this be another butterfly effect? Seeing Ruan Lianrong's prolonged silence, Ning Wugui grew concerned. He asked, If the letter is genuine, Princess, will you still go to Linen? Wen Zhuang lowered his eyes beside them. His expression was equally troubled. Who could it be? Ruan Lianrong shook her head. Even so, I must still go to Linen. She kicked the still kneeling gang leader. Where did you take our belongings? The gang leader quickly pointed, In that room over there, in the west wing. I assure you nothing was touched. Ruan Lianrong discussed with the two. Let's stay here tonight and continue tomorrow. Ning Wuguei acknowledged. The Qingsha gang's remote location had beautiful natural surroundings, nestled between mountains and water, very peaceful. A white dove cooed and landed on Wen Zhuang's fingertip. Wen Zhuang caught the dove, tucked a small note into its claw, then released it again. Watching the dove fly away, Wen Zhuang appeared particularly lonely. The next moment, there was a rustling in the nearby bushes. Come here, followed by clucking sounds of attack. Ruan Lianrong yelped behind the bushes, crouching and up to something. Wen Zhuang looked on helplessly as Ruan Lianrong crawled on the ground, watching two proud roosters while grumbling through gritted teeth. I won't give up. I'll deal with you today. Wen Zhuang walked up behind the crawling Ruan Lianrong. Princess, it's getting dark. We're leaving early tomorrow. Why are you catching chickens instead of sleeping? Ruan Lianrong was exasperated. She stood up with hands on hips. They're keeping me awake. I want to make them into finger-licking chicken. Let's see if they dare to be so arrogant then. Wen Zhuang stood beside Ruan Lianrong, silently closing his mouth. Ruan Lianrong's initially high spirits suddenly deflated. Though I don't know how to make it, or even how to catch them. Hearing this, Wen Zhuang smiled gently, with a mix of indulgence and resignation. He rolled up his sleeves and stepped forward. Let me, though I don't know your finger-licking chicken recipe. I do know how to make beggar's chicken. Feathers flew everywhere as the roosters clucked and fluttered about. Soon, the mud-wrapped beggar's chicken was placed on an iron rack, sizzling as it roasted. Rich aromas wafted through the air. Wen Zhuang rolled up his sleeves and fanned the fire with his fan, trying to make it stronger. Ruan Lianrong sat beside him, looking at him with admiration. Wen Zhuang, you're amazing. Wen Zhuang smiled. It's nothing. Living outdoors, I picked up these basic skills. The outer clay shell was cracked open, revealing the steaming hot beggar's chicken. Ruan Lianrong grabbed a drumstick. Well, don't mind if I do. Suddenly, Wen Zhuang reached out. There's something on your nose. Let me. His hand brushed across Ruan Lianrong's cheek, making her blush instantly. She quickly regained composure. Such a beautiful evening and delicious food. We can't do without wine. She produced a jar of wine from somewhere. Luckily, I secretly kept this fortress wine. Have a drink with me, brother? After drinking quite a bit, Ruan Lianrong's eyes became hazy. Her cheeks were flushed, clearly affected by the wine. She hiccuped. Beside her, several empty wine jars lay scattered. While Wen Zhuang continued roasting chicken, Ruan Lianrong hugged a wine jar. Wen Zhuang, how can a doctor cook so well and hold his liquor so well? She paused, then continued with a lovesick expression that looked rather comical. And be so handsome too? Hearing this, Wen Zhuang's hand froze mid-roasting. He looked up, smiling at the clearly intoxicated and dazed Ruan Lianrong. Princess, you're drunk. Ruan Lianrong dropped the wine jar and moved closer to Wen Zhuang. Imitating a playboy, she grabbed Wen Zhuang's chin. Giggling foolishly, trying to flirt, she said, Smile for me, pretty one. Wen Zhuang froze, his face darkening. He caught her wandering hand and tried to move the wine jar away from her. Princess, you shouldn't drink anymore. Ruan Lianrong snatched back the wine jar. Red-faced, she protested, I'm not drunk, though her words weren't convincing at all. Then she put down the jar and lunged at Wen Zhuang, speaking flirtatious words. Handsome boy, why don't you just be mine? She stroked Wen Zhuang's long hair, rambling, I'll write books to make money, and you just stay pretty. Wen Zhuang's face suddenly reddened. Ruan Lianrong fell against his chest, still fantasizing about their beautiful future together. We can buy a big 3-bedroom apartment. Before finishing her sentence, Ruan Lianrong passed out in Wen Zhuang's arms. Wen Zhuang was stunned. Never before had a woman fallen drunk into his arms. The sudden situation left him at a loss. His hands hovered in the air, unsure where to place them. A servant appeared behind him. Master, shall I help take the princess to her room? Wen Zhuang declined. He stood up and lifted Ruan Lianrong by her knees, carrying her completely. With flushed cheeks, Wen Zhuang looked at the sleeping Ruan Lianrong in his arms, thinking, what a nonsense-talking little liar.